the conversation that's slowly but surely starting to simmer around Michigan. There's a lot of people that are asking the question, well, if Michigan does win the national championship, if Michigan hoists the hardware in Houston, is there an asterisk next to it? Because remember the Connor Stallion stuff and the Jim Harbaugh stuff at the beginning of the year with the recruiting violations. A lot of people, I think, are wondering if this is going to count. And I say count more so in a metaphorical sense rather than a literal sense. We'll talk about the literal sense here in just a little bit. But I think when you look at this whole conversation around Michigan and around the Connor Stallion sign stealing stuff, there's always been two extreme opinions, right? One has been they did nothing wrong at all. Prove it. Prove it. They did nothing wrong. And you hear that mostly from the good folks in Ann Arbor. And to be honest, I salute y'all. Do what you got to do. Support your team. The other side of this is they are cheaters. They should be disqualified from the college football playoff. Give Michigan the death penalty as a football program. You hear a lot of that noise, usually from the folks in Columbus, Ohio. And again, to both sides, I salute y'all. Go to bat for your teams. Go to bat for what you believe in. But what I'm trying to say here is if you hold either one of those extreme opinions, your mind's probably not changing regardless of what happens in the national title game. You probably are dying on whatever hill you're on. And again, more power to you. But here's what the facts are right now when it comes to Michigan and when it comes to this national title run that they're on. Everyone that has played Michigan has been on red alert of the sign stealing stuff. So either you were like Alabama and didn't watch film on your own, or you more than likely changed your signs, or you had a certain game plan going in that was different than previous game plans. Everyone that's played Michigan has kept their game plan as close to the vest as possible. What I'm trying to say is the sign stealing stuff that might have been a factor last season, if it was a factor last season, is, I would say, with almost absolute certainty, not a factor in this season. So here's the facts. Michigan is undefeated. Michigan has beaten 3 top 10 teams, one of which being at Penn State and another of which being in the college football playoff against Alabama. Of course, that other team being Ohio State that they played against in Ann Arbor and won that game, but the point still stands. Quality competition. They beat all 3 of those top 10 teams. Michigan, undefeated, beat 3 top 10 teams, had no head coach for the games at Penn State or Ohio State. They had a head coach. It was Sharon Moore. It wasn't your head coach in Jim Harbaugh. It's also a fact that Michigan has somewhere in the range of double-digit dudes that are going to play in the NFL. They've had the same results this season and better than the season previously, which was, again, of course, the accused sign-stealing fiasco going on. And I'll be transparent, too, and say I think they probably cheated. With as much smoke that's going on, with as much supposed evidence that's out there, I think Michigan probably did steal signs and probably did it in an unsavory manner. So that's my opinion on it. But at what point do we say that this season and what Michigan's doing right now is just a really good college football team? It's just a team that is out there with their 11 versus your 11, and their 11 is better than your 11 yet again. At what point do we give this team credit? Because to me, I think the take of, well, they're only good because of their sign stealing, that doesn't have any leg to stand on anymore. What are you basing that off? You think they stole signs against Ohio State again? You think they stole signs against Alabama and that's how they beat that team? I don't think so. I have a hard time getting on board with that. And I think the public also has gotten on board with this opinion a little bit more that, hey, Michigan's maybe just a really good football team. And the reason I say that is because think back to Selection Sunday. The talking point was always around who's going to be at 4. Is it Bama? Is it Florida State? Does Texas still get in? How does that all work? Nobody was really saying anything about Michigan. Nobody really had an objection to Michigan, whereas earlier in the year, before the Penn State game, you had people saying they should not make the college football playoff. But then they went out and beat Penn State. They beat Maryland, and they beat Ohio State, and then that volume got turned all the way down. Why? Because I think most people are getting on board with this thought that Michigan is just a good football team, regardless of sign-stealing stuff. If there was sign-stealing stuff going on previously, definitely wasn't going on at this point in time. And they did not have their head coach. So in that sense, I think you could say the degree of difficulty got ramped up. On top of that, the external distractions you had with having to deal with all of this craziness around your sign-stealing stuff and around, the extra buzz. Now, some of that, again, I agree. Michigan has invited upon themselves by nature of what they probably did in the past. But at the same time, at what point are we just saying this is a good football team? I think at this point that needs to be said. because there's nothing concrete supporting the claim that based on the field, what they've done is nothing short of elite. There's nothing you can say against that at this point in time. Like there's no more excuses against, well, they stole signs against Ohio State. Oh, they didn't. They beat them. Well, Penn State, this, that. Nope, they beat them. They ran the ball exclusively in the second half to win that game. You don't have to have any signs to do that. I think at this point, too, what we're going to hear a lot of is, well, you're just excusing cheating. You're just saying it's okay to cheat. No. I'm not saying it's okay to cheat. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. It's not okay to cheat. Michigan's been punished, and they've taken that punishment, won even in the face of that punishment, those last 3 games. But in the context of this season, there's nothing that should take away from what they're doing. So if they do win the national title in Houston on Monday, they do hoist that hardware, and the confetti drops on Jim Harbaugh and J.J. McCarthy and all that, like, I don't think there's any solid piece of evidence or anything that you can say that would convince anybody that's actually watched these games and say, you know what, no, Michigan didn't deserve to win that national championship. Michigan won the national championship, asterisk next to it. I don't think that's a situation we're living in right now. Now, the major caveat here, and this is something that people are going to say a lot on social media, is, well, enjoy it while you have it, because the NCAA is going to come a knock and they're going to take that thing from you. Enjoy the banner while you have it. It's going to get torn down. Enjoy that trophy because they're going to take it away. And to that, I would say, with that thought process, one, I'd be surprised if that happened. I truly would. I'd be very surprised if this somehow was vacated. So that's one. Two, think about how we view Reggie Bush's Heisman. I understand it's not a one-to-one correlation, but just roll with me here for a little bit. Was anything that happened with Reggie Bush taking away from that Heisman season? Does any of us as the college football public think that Reggie Bush wasn't still the best player in college football this season, short of a few folks in Austin, Texas that are probably saying Vince Young should have won it? I hear that. I just disagree. Same thing with this. Like, we're reaching so far back to last season and talking about sign stealing and talking about what Michigan did. Like, this season is all we're talking about. The sign stealing stuff, I promise everybody and their mama was on red alert. There was no sign stealing stuff going on this year. With just about absolute certainty, I would say that. So even if they did come and vacate it, even if the worst of worst case scenarios happened, I think everybody would still know, hey, Michigan still was that team that year. And say what you want about what happened in previous years, say what you want about Connor Stallions, Michigan was that team that year, and they beat the brakes off everybody. So it is what it is. Again, I'd be surprised if anything happened with Michigan, but if they hoist that national title trophy on Monday night, there's no ifs, ands, or buts to me about them being deserving of it. And any asterisk next to it, I think you can keep. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.